Who is the father of the child I'm carrying? Not knowing is eating me up inside day by day. When I turned to David, I thought I'd finally find safety. But now, lost in the chaos of New York City, I'm haunted by my own actions. This child growing inside me, who does it belong to? My husband David, or his brother? Emily, 34, had grown up in a small town, dreaming that her marriage to David would be a haven of love and happiness. But ever since they'd moved to New York, David's indifference and coldness had shattered her dreams. His obsession with work, controlling nature, and at times harshness had left Emily feeling alone, trapped in a loveless marriage. Each day, her emotional hunger grew, filling her with a deep sense of emptiness. Just when Emily thought she'd become invisible, David's younger brother Ryan moved to New York, hoping to find work and start a new life. His arrival was unexpected, and it would change Emily's life in ways she'd never anticipated. Ryan, a young man fresh out of their small hometown, was gentle, kind, and warm. Unlike David, he brought light into the house with his easy laughter and friendly demeanor. Emily found herself drawn to him, noticing things she hadn't felt in years: a connection, a warmth, a sense of being seen. Ryan looked at her with a kindness that David hadn't shown her in a long time. Over time, Ryan started noticing the hidden pain Emily carried. The bruises she tried to hide, the sadness behind her eyes, signs of a pain that only grew more obvious with every passing day. One evening, he looked at her tenderly, with a mixture of concern and admiration, sensing the sorrow she was trying to keep hidden. One afternoon, while David was away, Emily stepped out of the shower, reaching for her towel when it suddenly slipped, falling to the floor. In that vulnerable moment, she turned to see Ryan standing in the doorway. His eyes fell on her, his gaze lingering on the bruises and marks on her wet skin, the traces of the pain she'd endured. Ryan's expression was filled with both sadness and admiration, a mix that made Emily's heart race with emotions she hadn't felt in a long time. Quickly gathering herself, she wrapped the towel around her body, but the intense, silent moment between them had already sparked something forbidden. Emily couldn't ignore the way Ryan had looked at her, like she mattered, like someone saw her. The quiet thrill stayed with her, even as guilt began to settle in. Another day, while David was out again, Emily was in the bathroom when Ryan knocked on the door, saying he'd forgotten his phone. She opened the door slightly to hand it to him. But just as she did, her foot slipped on the wet floor, causing her to fall. Ryan instinctively stepped in, catching her before she hit the ground. His hands felt warm and steady against her damp skin, and as they locked eyes, the tension between them grew undeniably intense. This was the moment when they both realized their feelings were something they could no longer hide. Ryan held her close, his touch filled with a tenderness Emily hadn't felt in years. In his presence, she felt valued and understood, a stark contrast to the isolation she'd felt with David. That night, Emily and Ryan found themselves unable to resist the growing tension any longer. Their emotions took over, and for the first time, Emily felt wanted and cherished in a way she hadn't in years. But as dawn broke, the weight of what they had done settled over them like a storm cloud. The thrill of forbidden passion faded, replaced by a deep sense of guilt. As the days passed, they found themselves unable to stop seeing each other, the pull between them growing stronger. Even though they both knew it was wrong, the allure of the forbidden and the desire they felt made it nearly impossible to stay away from one another. One evening, David came home earlier than expected and found Emily and Ryan together in an intimate moment. His eyes burned with shock and anger as he looked at them, the betrayal clear in his gaze. Emily felt her heart drop, knowing there was no turning back, no undoing the pain she had caused. David looked at them in silence before storming out of the house, leaving Emily frozen with regret. The loss of David shook Emily to her core, and both she and Ryan were left reeling in the aftermath of their forbidden connection. The weight of their guilt grew unbearable, and Ryan soon decided he couldn't continue this way. He quietly packed up and left New York, leaving Emily alone with her memories and regrets. Months later, as Emily was struggling to rebuild her life, she discovered she was pregnant. The news was shocking, filling her with a deep, haunting question: who was the father of her child? David or Ryan? This unanswered question hung over her every day, a permanent reminder of her mistake. As her pregnancy progressed, Emily was forced to face her guilt and regrets. The life growing inside her was a constant reminder of that forbidden love, an unshakable symbol of her choices. Today, every movement of the child inside me reminds me of my mistake, of the guilt and regret that never seem to fade. I will never know who the father is, and I must live with this uncertainty. This forbidden affair has left me only with regret, a crushing sense of guilt, and a question I can never answer.